Hi everyone, I'm Sandra and welcome back to A Few Minutes in Voice. Today we have Mark Carpenter on the line. And Mark, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Sandra. This is Mark Carpenter. I'm a developer focused primarily on voice. I've been doing development for a lot of years and really have found voice to be a unique challenge and unique opportunity. And I've really poured myself into mostly the Alexa space. I'm actually an Alexa champion. That's an individual who has been chosen by Amazon because of our knowledge of the Alexa platform, but also our enthusiasm for it. So I've got lots of skills published on Alexa, and am starting to do more and more work on the Google Home platform too. So
Yeah, I'm excited about that. You know what I'm excited about too
what?
is the announcement of Siri and what Siri's doing. I wonder if they'll open up some of those domains to
Great
be more
question.
developer friendly. At least that's my hope. I really enjoyed kind of like their take on voice. I
Mm,
feel like Alexa and Google, they've really been focused on kind of like making the user's experience easier.
yeah,
But like Apple took the stance of like, we're literally going to change people's lives, by their video with the man in the power wheelchair, right? Using his voice to navigate and to be able to access, things that we take for granted, for sure.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so no, I'm excited. I mean, like, I think, they're definitely stepping in the arena as well. So like you said, we need to focus not only on like the Amazon Alexa platform, but Google Home. And now, Apple's starting to come back and say, hey, look at us and look what we're doing. So today I wanted to talk about something kind of unique that you did. It's definitely one of the first skills that I've seen that has done this. So I'll let you kind of like introduce the skill, kind of what it does, and why it's unique. And you can give us, maybe a snippet of why you think people should be looking at the skill, even from a user's experience, but also developer's experience.
Sure, absolutely. Right. So you're talking about the art today skill, right? Which is something
Yes.
that we just completed, and it's just been live, I think, over the past week. That reminds me, I want to go see how many people have enabled it and what the usage is like. I'll do that later. So this
Absolutely.
is an interesting skill. This was the idea of why don't we show something from the amazing collection of art at the Met, right? The Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, because they've got an amazing collection, and it just goes in all directions. And we thought it'd be really fun if we could showcase some art, but what? Just random? Uh,
Right.
yeah, sure, that would work, but why not something more relevant? And so we
Mhm.
landed on the idea of relevant being, well, what's today? What's happening today, or what did happen today?
Right.
So on Wikipedia, right, there's a today in history section,
Right.
and it pulls events from history. No filter, no time limit, no place limits from
Mhm.
history, and shows I think three, four, five of those every day, and it rotates, so it's different every day, right?
Mhm.
So there it sits on Wikipedia, publicly available information about history, what happened, and we thought, wow, how could we leverage that publicly available information so we don't have to curate that information to turn that into requests to the Met for art. Well, you can't. There's no mechanism um, in terms of the APIs available for the Met to send in a big long string and get
Right.
something back. There is a search function, but you can't send it a sentence. It doesn't work. So you really got to send it a keyword, like the Crusades, or Hiroshima or something that's
Right.
historical. And so we looked around and thought, how can we take that content from Wikipedia and extract from it a word or two, which could then be sent forward to the Met to find relevant collection images. And so we landed on the idea of using Microsoft Azure text analytics services, right? It's cloud service from Microsoft. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And what you can do with that is you can send it the sentence, and it will send back a series of phrases, keywords that are relevant to that sentence. So if you did send back, on this day, King Henry, whoever of the, was on the Crusades to Jerusalem. Well, that might pull back Jerusalem. It might pull back the Crusades. It might pull back King Henry. If he was even on the Crusades, I don't know for a fact. But there was certainly some king involved in that. And you would then have these keywords by virtue of using that API that could then be used in the next API calls to the Met. And so it worked, right?
That's amazing.
So now when you use Art today, what's happening, right? So first of all, what happens is we run a process once a day because it does take a long time to do all this processing. It takes longer than the amount of time it would take if it was an Alexa skill responding on the fly. Right? It takes 45 seconds for this entire process to run because it fetches all sorts of images and puts here's another issue we ran into.
What?
CORS, C-O-R-S, right? And so this is an issue when you're putting an image into a web page and the image is not sourced from the same server as the web page is served. So it's called cross-origin something security, right? There's an issue. And so when there's these two servers involved for the content on the one web page, issue. And we really don't want the images to not be seen in this skill. That would be an issue. And it's really an issue with, by the way, the cards, not so there's two ways to see the images in this skill. One is the cards in the Alexa app. The other is APL. So on the screens of Echo devices with screens. Yeah.
Right.
So, but it's the
like
card.
This one.
This one really leverages both, but the cards wouldn't show the images because of this CORS issue. We have no control over the image server where we can go make some adjustments to allow it. So we actually have to copy the images from the Met server to a server, to one of our S3 buckets on AWS. And by the way, they expire. We don't maintain them more than a couple of days, right? So no issues with ownership or anything like this. So that was part of the solution as well. And that's why it takes so long for that process to run. So that process that reads Wikipedia, that builds the collection images, copies the images to an S3 bucket that doesn't have a CORS issue, because we can control those settings, right? That takes time, and therefore, it can't be done on the fly. So we have this process run once a day. Then the Alexa skill simply accesses the data that's been built by that process and starts to randomly pull one of hundreds of entries for that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. It's one of a kind for sure. I don't know any other skills that are doing that. Do you?
I can't point to one personally and say this one, but that's not uncommon because an Alexa skill times out after, what is it, 13 seconds or 8 seconds? I can't remember the exact number, but somewhere, and because you can't just wait. So somewhere in there, there's a timeout, and there are lots of skills, no doubt, that are having to deal with that timeout issue. And this is the way to deal with it. Go pre-fetch the data. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I'm sure some people could definitely use that insight, because I think everyone, as they're navigating this landscape, is like running into different issues, especially from like a developer development perspective, right? It's like maybe in the traditional development, mobile app space, web development space, it's like you had a certain set of issues that, had basically now a library of answers. But as you're moving into the Alexa space, I think you really have to rely on people who've been there, done that, or run into similar issues and kind of like talk and walk through it together.
Yeah.
Because,
Well, there's no
because it's
question.
definitely unique.
Sorry.
So I think that's why I enjoy the community, is I think everyone does seem to be willing to kind of be like, hey, I have that issue too, or like, hey, any ideas here? I'm kind of stuck. So I
Yes,
definitely think that people should
absolutely.
utilize, each other, and definitely, if anyone has any questions, I feel like, you're always a good resource in that regard, especially, I like to think of a seasoned Alexa
Right.
skills developer.
What that means is
And
exactly what you're saying is what it means. And that is, because I've been doing development for years, I've had to solve lots of problems. And there's a good chance the problem you're having today, I've seen it before.
right, right, right.
That's,
No, I agree. I agree completely. So one last thing, before we hang up. So I was like curious, maybe, you've been in this space for a while, you've seen a lot of issues. So where do you potentially see like the world of voice going? Maybe in like the next 2 years and maybe the next 5 years? Because there's a lot of like, hoopla or hype behind, oh, voice is going to transform. There's so many echoes or, digital assistants in people's homes, and now in their cars and their cell phones. But it's like, where do you envision that, right? Because I mean, utility is like, in my opinion, number one. And I would say like everyone's in a way, scrambling to find that utility.
yeah, great question. And I don't know if there's one answer that I have for
Oh, I
that.
don't think so either.
So I know I've seen dramatic improvements, and you were talking about new series stuff, right? That was announced a couple weeks ago or whatever at their WWDC event. So there will be improvements to how these devices speak. It'll sound a lot more normal, like you and I are talking right now.
Right.
So that's going to be a dramatic improvement. I think when that happens, more people will use them, right? It's just they'll be better. So that's a big change. Now that's a change that's implemented by the big companies, right? Alexa, Amazon, Apple, Google. But
Right.
still, it filters down to what we can do. Then I think the big change comes, the big opportunity, potential change comes in the fact that look, I want to talk to this device and I want it to know certain things about me. Of course, I have privacy concerns and so on. But if it knew more about me, it could be far more useful to me.
Right. Right.
So I think the opportunities for us as developers are to hook up more data in a responsible way, so
Right.
that it
And I
does.
think that's the key, right? Is like in a responsible way. So,
Yes, certainly.
somebody like pointed out like on that topic, I was like, where do you, like I asked them a similar question, right? And they're not in the developer space, they're more like in the robotics,
Mm-hmm.
IoT space. And I asked them, I was like, where do you see like the world of voice, or like, what do you think it's accomplished thus far? And they said, having so many devices in so many homes is like the first step towards people understanding that their data can be useful for them. And that isn't always like a concern of privacy if developers and companies do make that a priority and a responsibility, right? And so now, like you mentioned, it's something that can be beneficial even further. So I don't know. I think like there's a kind of like an interesting way to look at it, right? Because a lot of people, the first thing they say is like, oh, my privacy, my privacy, my privacy. But it's like, in a way, by you letting into your home, like you're almost accepting that, the developers or Amazon or Apple
Trusting them,
have,
right?
yeah, that they've, done that. And I know some people may argue like there's gaps, and there's always gaps in technology. And so,
Yes.
I do. So it makes me excited to know, people like yourself or developers like yourself are trying to take that and make that a responsibility. So, I'm excited too to see like where it comes. And like you said, I think the more the development continues, the more useful it will be. And, having a more natural conversation partner with access to more data about you could really transform the way we interact with each other in the world. So I'm excited to see that.
Me too.
Well, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you before we hang up here?
Well, I'd love to mention two things. I just pushed a new skill to Alexa, so it's under certification. I'm confident it gets reviewed and approved. And when it's live, I'd love to talk about it again. And it allows you
for sure.
to look up the details, such as we can find them about a phone number. Right? There's a huge problem with spam. In fact, my phone is ringing next to me right now, and it's got. I use a little tool that identifies it as a spam risk, so I'm not answering it. But we're flooded with phone calls from people we don't know, and even though the government's going to take a whack at reducing that, it's still going to happen. Yeah, and so I built a skill where you can simply give it the phone number of interest, and it goes out and finds in public databases. They're paid databases, right? But they're public. Everything it can about that phone number, and then it tells you. And there's a lot of interesting information. They can give you spam ranking or robocall ranking and
oh my goodness,
caller IDs and all these things. Yes. So I'm really excited about that. Was a challenge from an API standpoint too. And it's called.
Well, we'll have to have another conversation on that. Well, I'm excited. So be on the lookout, everyone, for what is the name of this skill, Mark?
It's going to be number lookup.
Number lookup.
Yeah.
So number lookup, and then if you want to see what Mark
in the next week or two. Yep.
In the next week or two, and then if you want to see what Mark has already done, be sure to check out some of the skills under VoiceSkillsInc, or also be sure to enable Art of Today.
Yes.
So.
and if anybody wants to follow up with me, then the way to do that is to reach out to VoiceSkillsInc, right, and have conversation with Jody. And if it's appropriate, then they can reach me. Yep.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we'll be sure to feature you on our future episodes with some of the exciting development you have.
Thank
you. Be sure to reach out if you have any other questions. So, all right. Take care, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. Bye.